I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline. Hurricane Rita is pounding the Gulf Coast. The most vulnerable have been evacuated.
Okay, sweetheart, you have a safe flight.
But the holdouts
I feel safe, I do.
are on their own.
If you have not evacuated, it is probably too late for you to do so.
And in Galveston, where everyone was braced for a wall of water, amid the wind and rain came a wall of fire. Tonight, state of emergency, preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. We are entering that moment of transition when live television moves from an earlier stage of informed speculation to a later stage of reporting what is actually happening. At this point, we're stuck with a little bit of both. The outer edges of Hurricane Rita, which is to say the outer edge of the eye wall, has now made landfall. We'll show you where that's happening and what the immediate impact seems to be. This is the season when the director of the National Hurricane Center goes from comfortable obscurity to everyone in the country hanging on his every word. Max Mayfield will be joining us live in just a few minutes. And while a lot of what went wrong in New Orleans when it was hit by Katrina a few weeks ago has been remedied in advance of Rita hitting Texas, we have a fresh problem to keep us awake at night. Monumental traffic jams, running out of gasoline, and the still unsolved problem of how to move 1 million or more people out of a congested urban center in a hurry. They were giving motorists emergency transfusions of $5 worth of gasoline in places. Just think about that for a second. At current prices, that is somewhere between 1.5 and 2 gallons. And oh yes, any moment now, Rita is in fact impacting a whole string of refineries, which will bump the price up even more. For a while, forecasters thought Rita was making a beeline for Galveston. Well, Galveston can now breathe a little bit easier in terms of the storm. But tonight, a huge fire broke out in the deserted city, fanned by the winds from Rita. ABC's Mike Von Friend is in Galveston right now. Mike, why don't you talk us through what happened?
Well, they first thought we were pretty lucky because we're on the back side of the storm, the so-called clean side of the storm. But I'll tell you, it was a mess earlier this evening. It began when we heard transformers exploding. It almost sort of felt like I was back in Baghdad. The explosions were enormous. And then power lines began arcing. And then here at the hospital where we're taking shelter, we heard that there was a fire downtown. Our crews went out, and the flames were just incredible. And what is so amazing about it, Ted, is that it's been raining, you know, for hours and hours, and yet these flames took a historic section of Galveston and were just leaping. And firefighters in the middle of a hurricane were battling a blaze, and it ended up burning an entire city block. One person was burned and had to be taken to this hospital for injuries, and 3 firefighters suffered some minor injuries fighting this blaze. It was very unexpected, Ted.
Well, we've been looking, indeed, we're looking right now at the fire, and I do want you to assure people that fire, and this is also amazing because obviously the fire was being fanned by those very, very strong winds, but apparently the fire's out, under control.
They have it under control. I've seen them talk to the firefighters. We've, looked at the scene, but it was surprising. I guess it's because the buildings were so old, but it was surprising that the wind was fanning those flames in the middle of all this water coming down.
Well, they are extraordinary.
But, things are under control.
They're extraordinarily dramatic pictures, Mike, so we'll keep looking at them for a moment. But the great fear was that there would be a storm surge that would actually surpass those, 17-foot seawalls that you've got there in Galveston?
Yes, it's that seawall that protects Galveston, and actually by being on the backside, the wind is driving against the hurricane coming in. So it's actually driving, it's protecting the seawall. That's not a threat. Galveston's going to be fine as far as storm surge is concerned.
All right, so we have that fire, which is under control, and the storm surge that apparently Galveston doesn't need to worry about any further tonight. So with that, Mike, let me urge you to get out of the wind and the rain, and thank you very much.
Okay.
Again tonight, the man who's been tracking the path of Rita, Max Mayfield, director of the National Hurricane Center in Miami, joins us live. Max, I wonder, do you ever sleep? And is tonight the night when you get any sleep at all?
Not tonight, Ted. Hopefully I'll go home sometime this morning, and I hope I can sleep for a whole day.
All right, I mentioned at the top of this program, Max, that the northernmost part of the eye wall has now made landfall. What's the intensity of the wind, and what's the prognosis for the next 12 to 24 hours?
Yeah. Well, we think that we still have Category 3 hurricane force winds in that eye wall there that, as you say, had just come on shore really between Sabine Pass and Cameron, Louisiana. The highest wind we've seen observed has been 112 miles per hour in Cameron, and that was actually out of the east. And when that comes around from the south, it's going to push that storm surge in. So, you know, we've still got a long way to go here before this is over with.
The actual storm itself is not moving that fast anymore, is it? What's its forward motion?
It's about 11 miles per hour now, and so the actual center of the hurricane is still just a little bit offshore here, but within the next hour or two, that should be moving on the coast, and then the winds will start to go down fairly quickly. Probably they'll decrease down about 50% of the landfall intensity within 12 hours or so, and then we'll, you know, we still have to worry about the storm surge during the morning hours here. But over the next day or so, getting back to your first question there, we'll be focusing more on the rainfall.
What do you predict now that rainfall is going to be, and does that have anything to do with the fact that the storm is being kept in the south there by the jet stream?
Well, we're really forecasting 10 to 15 inches of rain here in the next day or two along the path of the hurricane in this area. But then in about 3 days or so, we're afraid that the steering currents will collapse and it may stall somewhere up in northeastern Texas, and then we're going to have to watch it very carefully. We could end up having some really, really heavy rains after that, and that'll have a big impact on folks that are trying to come back down to the coastal areas.
And as far as storm surge along the Texas and Louisiana coast tonight are concerned?
Absolutely, and this is the biggest concern, quite frankly. We still think we'll have 15 and 20 feet of storm surge, you know, from near the Texas-Louisiana border out eastward, primarily in this area here. This is going to be, you know, this is Lake Charles up here in Cameron, Louisiana, very, very vulnerable to the storm surge.
Very quickly, Max, is New Orleans going to get any further problems?
They should be, well, they're not going to have any problem at all with the wind, and if we look at the rainfall here, it really looks like, you know, they're not going to have too much more in the way of rain bands here. It's just that 4 to 5 feet of surge over there that evidently has stopped some of those levees again.
All right, Max Mayfield, thanks again very much, and look forward to that 24 hours of sleep starting this weekend.
Thank you very much.
Good night. When we come back, the Gulf Coast empties, learning from Katrina.
This is ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Ambien.
My name is Sarah, and I'm not an actress. I went through 2 or 3 years of not being able to sleep. I got great sheets, I had the perfect pillows, nothing worked for me. I went to my doctor. She said, you know what, I'm going to give you a prescription for Ambien. I tried it that night, and it helped me get a good night's sleep. When you go that long without sleep, you have no idea what it's like when you finally get to sleep. I'm very happy I found Ambien.
Prescription sleep aids are most often taken for 7 to 10 days as needed, or longer as advised by your doctor. Until you know how Ambien will affect you, you shouldn't drive or operate machinery. Side effects may include drowsiness, dizziness, and diarrhea. You shouldn't take it with alcohol. All sleep medicines carry some risk of dependency. Memory problems can usually be avoided by taking Ambien only when you can devote 7 to 8 hours to sleep. Talk to your doctor. Ambien works like a dream.
Tomorrow, starting at daybreak and continuing throughout the morning, as Hurricane Rita crashes ashore in the Gulf. Turn to Diane Sawyer, Charles Gibson, Bill Weir, and a special extended edition of Good Morning America Weekend tomorrow morning.
Portland Center Stage presents Underneath the Lintel, an obsessed librarian and a book 113 years past due. It's a humorous excursion around the world in 80 minutes, September 27th through October 30th. Call for tickets today.
This is an Oregon forest, but unfortunately so is this. Fire is a normal visitor to a healthy forest, but years of keeping fire out and a lack of thinning have left many of our forests filled with fuel for large, intense wildfires, putting homes and habitat at risk. Careful forest management can help reduce the risk of these fires while sustaining the forest and all their benefits for generations to come. Here's how you can learn more about sustaining Oregon's forests.
Portland Center Stage presents Underneath the Lintel, an obsessed librarian and a book 113 years past due. It's a humorous excursion around the world in 80 minutes, September 27th through October 30th. Call for tickets today.
Along the Louisiana and southeast Texas coast, the last 72 hours have played out with the lessons of Katrina firmly in everyone's minds. Chris Bury has spent the day in and around Beaumont, Texas.
The bad news for those of us in southeast Texas is that not much has changed overnight.
It looks like it's pretty certain going to head our way now.
By early morning, as the sky darkened and the radio sounded ominous notes,
Really the time to go ahead and leave.
The outbound traffic had slowed to a trickle. Today, the entire Gulf Coast seemed determined not to repeat the horror of Hurricane Katrina. Just outside Beaumont, more than enough buses were standing by for any stragglers.
It's a valuable lesson was learned from Katrina. I think that's why we're here. You know, we're here staging, just trying to make sure that everybody gets out.
For the sick and the elderly, of course, such evacuations were often complicated and stressful.
My dad's paralyzed with stroke, and my mom's a heart patient too, diabetic, and I couldn't get them out. You know, and they didn't want to go. They didn't want to be apart. And so I stayed. I finally talked to him to leave.
To the south, the coastal city of Port Arthur was all but abandoned. The shrimp boats tethered to the dock wall. The giant refineries in the last stages of shutting down. All along the harbor, halyards struck the sailboat masts like wind chimes, as if to sound warnings of their own. Gene Corman had planned to ride out Rita on his boat.
The reason I'm off my boat is she got me off with it today.
You were on your boat?
Yes.
Yes. And you were going to ride it out?
I was.
Oh, he didn't need to be on that boat. Is he crazy? You know, no, he needs to be in with us. It's going to be a lot of wind, a lot of water. We can fix boats. We can replace boats, but we can't fix brothers.
It's now mid-morning in Port Arthur, Texas, which is supposed to take the brunt of the storm. In just the last hour or so, the winds have picked up. The tide has started to come in a bit. But the center of Hurricane Rita is still more than 200 miles out into the Gulf. But as the wind speeds increase here, so does the sense of apprehension.
God bless us all on this one, man.
Bill Nickel, who runs a boatyard, wasn't much worried about the boats.
The insurance company going to take a beating. That's all, you know. It's just like they got them tied off, and that's about all you can do. It's tie them off. You can't move them anywhere.
By now, Port Arthur's residential streets look ghostly and deserted. William Gobart was packing up his pickup. He appeared among the very last to leave his neighborhood.
The storm's still out there, and it's coming this way, but I'll be gone before it gets here.
I've got 3 to transport from here. Could you...
For all the warnings and in spite of the mandatory evacuation, the Port Arthur police still had to round up a few of the stubborn, ornery, and uninformed.
Come on and leave, dude. I don't want to come back and find you floating.
It's shortly before noon in Port Arthur. The rains have started to fall, and the entire fire department is now evacuating the city. So for anyone who's left behind in this town, they'll be out of luck when it comes to emergency services.
Depending on how bad it is, will govern how long it keeps us out of town.
So for those who are left,
unfortunately they're on their own.
Let's go!
If the early and mostly orderly evacuations were one measure of Katrina's influence today, so was the emergency medical airlift. At the airport, patients from area hospitals and nursing homes, including some of the most critical cases, waited for the last military flights out. For nearly 24 hours, Air Force and National Guard units had been ferrying the medical evacuees on giant cargo planes to hospitals across the country. This afternoon, they loaded up the last C-17 and rolled out for San Antonio before Rita made the flights any more uncomfortable.
What we found in this case was that the federal response was prompt. It was very thorough. They had Air National Guard troops on the ground 6 hours after we declared a mandatory evacuation.
It's now early evening in Beaumont, just before 6 o'clock Central Time, and the outer bands of the hurricane have arrived with driving rain and gusty winds. But Rita has been downgraded to a Category 3 hurricane.
Are you breathing a little easier?
Not till she's gone. We'll start breathing real easy maybe tomorrow, midday, when the gale force winds leave and we can get our people back on the streets.
Tonight, local officials manned an emergency center in a downtown office building where police and rescue workers prepared to hunker down for the night and perhaps even longer. Now, of course, there is nothing to do but wait. There is no police service, no fire, no paramedic, and none of the emergency rescue workers will even begin to venture out until the wind drops below 50 miles an hour, whenever that may be. Ted?
Well, it's now just before 3 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, Chris, and as I look at that scene behind you, it almost looks as though you're at the edge of the ocean. Where exactly are you?
Well, we're in Beaumont, Texas, and of course we're about 25 miles north of the Gulf, and as the hurricane comes ashore southeast, we're about 50 miles from where the eye wall of the hurricane is coming ashore now. We've got sustained winds here of 50 miles an hour. They're gusting to more than 70 miles an hour. And as you can see behind me, the palm fronds are almost horizontal.
Well,
the wind has been really howling the last hour or so, and it's a bit spooky as it crashes against the hotel here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was really asking you more specifically where you are, because the wind is hurling that rain around so fiercely behind you that it looks as though you're at the very edge of the Gulf of Mexico. But where exactly are you? In a breezeway there at the hotel?
Exactly, Ted. I'm in a breezeway of a hotel in Beaumont, just off Interstate 10, and I can step back out here a little bit, and you can probably see that the wind is quite powerful. But we're right on the edge of a hotel. The gust just came through, and we get a little bit of protection just by walking in a few steps.
All right. What's the expectation for how long? I guess the eye wall has just about reached you guys too now, huh?
Well, it's only about 50 miles away from here, and the eye wall, of course, is hitting east. That means that Port Arthur and Beaumont may escape some of the brunt of the storm, but the winds are so strong and the storm is so big that there's no way this area is not going to get some kind of significant damage by the time first light comes and we can get some sense of what it is tomorrow.
Well, I'm amazed that we've been able to keep our live television signal up from Beaumont, and I thank you, Chris, and it's time to get back into the lobby, wherever that may be. Thanks very much.
Will do, Ted. Okay.
New Orleans was hit again today as Hurricane Rita's storm surge pushed water back into the city, flooding parts of it. The surge of water overran a patched-up levee above the 9th Ward. Water gushed into the lower-income neighborhood, sometimes to a depth of 6 feet. The neighborhood had only been drained during the last few days. Leaks were also found in another levee that had been patched up after the flooding. City officials say that entire area had been evacuated and that the water doesn't now threaten any areas that hadn't already been flooded earlier. In a moment, a hospital reborn.
Free? Free? You're giving it away free. Hi, I'm Rob Graham, the president of Vital Basics, and I want to give you a bottle of Focus Factor, one of our best-selling supplements, absolutely free. Why would we give away a free bottle of Focus Factor? Because we know that if you try it, you'll buy it. Focus Factor contains nutrients that work with your natural brain chemistry to support focus, concentration, and memory.
Focus Factor is now available at Walgreens and CVS Pharmacy, but if you call now, you can try it free.
Simply call the number on the bottom of your screen, and we'll send you a full-size bottle of Focus Factor, a $75 value, absolutely free. You simply provide $4.95 to help cover the cost of shipping.
They let you try it free? It must be good.
You know, I've been taking Focus Factor since we introduced it over 2.5 years ago, and I wouldn't work a day without it.
Buy it at Walgreens and CVS Pharmacy, or call now and try it free. Call 1-800-338-0034.
Tank of gas, $36. Being there when he changes his mind about joining the circus, priceless. There are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's MasterCard.
Metamucil presents The Regulars.
Bob, Fred, Jack. Bob, Fred, Jack. Bob, Fred, Jack.
If you want to be one of the regulars,
Bob, Fred, Jack.
take Metamucil Daily Fiber every day to stay regular the natural way.
Everyone has a good time when Quentin Tarantino stops by Jimmy Kimmel Live.
I prefer the normal way the shows go, but it's been okay.
The good times continue when Quentin Tarantino returns to an all-new Jimmy Kimmel Live, coming up only on ABC.
Fast, aggressive, relentless. Fire has no equal. Or does it? The 300 horsepower Lexus GS. See Lexus of Portland.
Call 1-866-SO-FAST-1 to get Comcast's high-speed internet for only $19.99 a month for the first 3 months. Comfortably surf the web with unparalleled protection and 3 free downloads from McAfee Security Solutions, a savings of over $100. A 6,000 kilobits per second connection means faster downloads for online news, music, games, and so much more. Sign up for Comcast's high-speed internet today by calling 1-866-SO-FAST-1 and get the service that's always safe, always fast, always Comcast.
It's barely raining in Houston tonight, but as those pictures of clogged highways testified, Houstonians were taking no chances. There was one part of the city, however, one particular building in the city whose residents did not have that option open to them. Here's ABC's Laura Marquez.
Downtown Houston, midday Friday. You'll find hardly anyone on these usually crowded streets. Everything is shut down and boarded up. But down the road, still very much open for business, is Texas Medical Center, the largest concentration of hospitals, educational, and research facilities in the world. 42 institutions in all, including 13 hospitals.
When the water opened up, it just rushed through and toppled everything. This is the kitchen where we prepare food for patients.
Nearly all of them were flooded in June 2001 when Tropical Storm Allison hit, doing almost $2 billion worth of damage to the entire medical center.
You actually had to push back against the water, or else there was enough current that you actually would get caught up in the current trying to stand to here.
The vice president of St. Luke's Hospital said 11 feet of water rushed through the basement, knocking out all power, leaving the hospital in the dark with no air conditioning and no running water for 72 hours.
We ceased being a hospital, really turned into an office building. It's like a ship being dead in the water. It can float, but it's really not operating as a ship. It has no capacity to go anywhere or do anything. You're just floating along with the tides.
Watch the ball, watch the ball. 4 years ago, 200 patients had to be evacuated. 2,000 total from all of Texas Medical Center. After that disaster, medical authorities knew they had to do things much differently and much better the next time. And that next time is now here.
Every time one of these things happens, you're foolish not to be thinking, what if it was us?
So for the last 4 years, Texas Medical Center has been working on a master plan for all its buildings on 800 acres, an area the size of Central Park. They called in outside designers and engineers. As the first line of defense, huge floodgates fortify the grounds.
It doesn't take much to actually close these.
If those fail, submarine doors have been installed inside to keep the water out. 31 alone at St. Luke's, with portholes so staff can check just how high the water is rising on the other side.
This is our $100 million door. It's the largest door that we have.
Reinforced steel walls were put up in the electrical room to protect the power grid, and the emergency power distributors were moved out of the basement to the upper floors. This new pump, which is responsible for all the oxygen that flows to patients, can work underwater. Inside St. Luke's Communication Center, they're keeping a wary eye on the storm's progress. Their immediate concern, the high winds. Many of the hospitals are huge towers of glass.
We're not as concerned about the wind as what might be in the wind. In other words, picking up debris, because our windows will withstand the wind, but if something comes as a projectile, then it could break the windows.
He needs to do it before we close the sky bridge. You know, the glass is there. We're not going to let people walk through later on.
Enough food and water has been brought in to last at least a week. Since the hospitals have emergency power, supplies, and of course doctors and nurses, it's a natural place for you to think of as a safe haven. But in fact, the hospitals are on lockdown. No outsiders allowed. The hospitals are not equipped to be emergency shelters, and they're afraid of being overwhelmed. Still fresh in their minds, the pictures of the horrible conditions at the hospitals in New Orleans following Hurricane Katrina.
I think it just reinforced the need to be prepared, to have us look at all of our contingency plans and make sure that we had thought of some of the things that had happened there.
They hope they thought of everything, but with only 200 beds left in the greater Houston area for the new victims of this storm, they know they will be pushed to their limits. I'm Laura Marquez for Nightline in Houston.
And I'll be back in a moment.
How Hank Tricked the Hound by Shaw. Ah, look, Hank chose Shaw Unscented, while Stanley goes for a macho smell. There they go. They've done it. Oh, no. Here's Rex. Nose on their trail. They split. And look, Rex only tracks down Stanley. Too bad, Stanley. Because Hank chose Shaw Unscented's 100% pure odor-free protection, he seems undetectable. Nice thinking, Hank.